The saloon doors swung open with a creak that sliced through the raucous laughter and clinking glasses, and every eye turned to the silhouette framed against the blazing Nevada sun. A woman stood there, dust swirling around her boots, her face shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat. In her hand, a revolver gleamed, catching the light like a promise of trouble. The room fell silent, save for the faint jangle of her spurs as she stepped inside. They laughed when she rode into the saloon with a gun until she spoke, her voice low and steady, cutting through the air like a blade. "Where's my daughter's killer?" Her name was Clara Hensley, a woman carved from the hard earth of the frontier, her eyes carrying the weight of a grief that could break mountains. 2 weeks ago, her daughter, Ellie, just 16, had been found lifeless in a dry creek bed, a single bullet through her heart. The sheriff called it a robbery gone wrong, but Clara knew better. Ellie had been running with a crowd that danced too close to the flames outlaws who frequented this very saloon, the Rusty Spur, a den of cardsharps and killers in the lawless town of Red Hollow. Clara had warned her, pleaded with her, but Ellie's spirit was wild, untamed, drawn to the thrill of danger. Now, Clara's world had shattered, and the only thing keeping her upright was the fire in her chest, burning for justice. The saloon's patrons stared, some smirking, others shifting uneasily. The bartender, a wiry man named Amos with a scar across his cheek, leaned forward. "Lady, you best put that gun down 'fore you hurt yourself," he said, his tone mocking but wary. Clara didn't flinch. She raised the revolver, pointing it at no one in particular, her gaze sweeping the room. "I ain't here for games," she said. "My Ellie's dead, and one of you knows who did it. Speak, or I start shootin'. The first challenge Clara faced was the wall of silence. Red Hollow was a town that thrived on secrets, where loyalty to outlaws ran deeper than blood. The men at the poker tables exchanged glances, their hands inching toward holsters. A young cowboy, barely older than Ellie, stood up, his voice shaking. "Ma'am, I don't know nothin' 'bout your girl, but you're stirrin' up a hornet's nest." Clara's eyes locked onto his, searching for truth. He looked away, and she knew he was hiding something. Her heart pounded, but she couldn't back down, not now, not ever. She stepped forward, her boots thudding on the warped floorboards. "Her name was Ellie Hensley," she said, her voice cracking but firm. She was 16, with eyes like the sky and a laugh that could light up the night. "Someone took her from me, and I'll tear this town apart till I find out who." The room stirred, murmurs rippling through the crowd. A woman in a tattered red dress, sitting at the bar, looked down at her glass, her fingers trembling. Clara noticed. She crossed the room in 3 strides, the gun still steady in her hand. "You," she said to the woman. "You know something. Speak." The woman, Maggie, was a saloon singer with a past as tangled as the desert thorns. She'd seen Ellie with a man named Cadwaller, a gunslinger with a smile like poison and a reputation for leaving bodies in his wake. Maggie hesitated, fear etched into her face. Cade was in the back room, playing cards with his crew, and crossing him meant death. Clara saw the terror in Maggie's eyes and softened her voice, though the gun didn't waver. "I ain't got nothin' left to lose," Clara said. "But you got a chance to do right. For Ellie." Maggie's resolve broke. She whispered Cade's name, her voice barely audible. Clara's heart lurched. Here was the lead she'd been chasing, but it came with a new challenge. Confronting Cade meant facing a man who'd killed before and wouldn't hesitate to do it again. She thanked Maggie with a nod and turned toward the back room, ignoring the whispers that followed her. The saloon's air grew thick, the tension like a storm about to break. As Clara approached the door, a burly man stepped in her path, Jeb, Cade's right-hand man, his face a map of scars and menace. "You ain't going in there," he growled, hand on his pistol. Clara's second challenge was clear. She was outnumbered, outgunned, and in a room full of men who'd rather see her dead than let her near Cade. Her mind raced. She'd never shot a man before, but the weight of the revolver in her hand felt like an extension of her rage. She raised it, aiming at Jeb's chest. "Move," she said, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her insides. Jeb sneered but hesitated, and in that moment, Clara saw her chance. She stepped closer, her eyes burning into his. "You think I'm scared of dyin'," she said. "My girl's gone. You ain't nothin' compared to that pain." Something in her voice, raw, unbreakable, made Jeb falter. He stepped aside, muttering a curse. The room watched, stunned, as Clara pushed through the door inside. Cade Waller sat at a table, cards fanned out before him, his black hat tilted low. He looked up, his smile cold as a snake's. "Well, now," he drawled, "what's a lady like you doin' with a gun like that?" Clara's grip tightened, her third challenge staring her in the face. Cade was charming, cunning, and faster with a gun than anyone in Red Hollow. She couldn't outshoot him, and she knew it. Her only weapon was the truth, and the hope that it could shake him. "You killed my Ellie," she said, her voice trembling with fury. "Shot her down like she was nothin'." "Why?" Cade's smile didn't waver, but his eyes flickered, just for a moment. He leaned back, tossing a card onto the table. "You got no proof, woman," he said. "And you're in over your head." But Clara wasn't alone anymore. Maggie had followed her, standing in the doorway, her voice shaking but clear. "I saw you with her, Cade," she said. "That night at the creek. You were argin'. Then I heard the shot." The room tensed, Cade's men shifting, hands on their guns. Clara's heart sank. She was trapped, and Maggie's confession had just put them both in the crosshairs. But something shifted in the air. The young cowboy from earlier stepped forward, his face pale but resolute. "She's right," he said. "I was there, too. Didn't want to say nothin', but Ellie didn't deserve that. Cade shot her 'cause she was gonna tell the sheriff about his rustlin'. The truth spilled out, raw and jagged, and Clara felt tears sting her eyes. Ellie had been brave, too brave, and it had cost her everything. Cade's smile vanished. He stood, his hand hovering over his holster. "You're all dead," he snarled. Clara's final challenge was now: survive this moment, or die trying to avenge her daughter. Time slowed. Her hand trembled, but her resolve didn't. She thought of Ellie's laugh, her bright eyes, the way she'd hug her tight after a long day. That memory steadied her. Before Cade could draw, Clara fired, not to kill, but to wound, her bullet grazing his arm. He stumbled, cursing, and in the chaos, the young cowboy tackled him, pinning him down. The saloon erupted, but not in violence. Maggie and the cowboy's words had broken the spell of fear that held Red Hollow captive. Others spoke up, voices rising, confessing what they'd seen, what they'd known. Cade's men, outnumbered by the truth, backed down. The sheriff, alerted by the commotion, arrived and took Cade into custody, his arm bleeding, his empire crumbling. Clara stood in the center of it all, her gun lowered, her chest heaving. She'd faced silence, danger, and her own fear, and she'd won not with bullets, but with the courage to demand justice. As Cade was dragged away, she sank to her knees, tears streaming down her face. Maggie knelt beside her, a hand on her shoulder. "You did it," Maggie whispered. "For Ellie." Clara returned home that night, the revolver heavy in her saddlebag. She sat by Ellie's old bed, clutching her daughter's shawl, and wept not just for her loss, but for the strength she'd found within herself. Red Hollow would never be the same, and neither would she. The town began to heal, its secrets laid bare, its people inspired by a mother's love that refused to break. The story of Clara Hensley spread beyond Red Hollow, a tale of a woman who faced a saloon full of outlaws and won, not with violence, but with the unbreakable will of a mother's heart. Her message lingered, powerful and clear: love can conquer even the darkest of evils, and one voice, raised for justice, can change everything.